So, hey, my name is Matej. I'm a senior product designer in Growth. And today I want to talk about a recent design sprint that we did on Growth for the user's dashboard page is what we call it. And that would be the page that loads once user clicks on the top left logo in the main nav bar. And this work didn't start out being a design sprint. We already did some work, and then in the middle of that I suggested, hey, should we do like a quick design sprint for this with a small team, just to accelerate it a bit and quickly find a solution and possibly validate it. And everyone was up for it. But before we get there, this is the work that we did previously. So we defined the user goals, right? Which the main one we defined was, what do I need to do to be successful in my role in this company / team, right? And then there are sub goals, which one of the main one was have an overview of what's relevant to me in GitLab, if we talk from the user's perspective. And then our goals as well, right? So our goals, that would be GitLab / growth team, what these goals would be. And the main one for us in this case is driving adoption of stages of GitLab, which then increases SPO, which is our metric for measuring our success, which is stages per organization, and then increase conversion, which helps increase ARR, which is our main goal, right? Then we listed some key steps for the dev leads and the software developers. We listed out some possible jobs to be done that we wanted to focus on. And we also started listing out some of the more concrete problems of the dev lead users and software development users as well. So at this point, we haven't decided which user we wanted to focus on yet. But after we mapped these problems, we realized that pretty much all of them were on the side of the dev lead, but not all of them were on the side of the software developer, right? There are quite a few of them that are only on the left side of this chart. So once we did this, it was clear, let's focus on the dev lead user. And we also needed to check to decide which job to be done we wanted to focus on. So we already said, okay, the dev lead. And we wanted to focus on the daily check-in job to be done, not the setting up, because the setting up, in this case, setting up of this dashboard, setting up of an account on GitLab wasn't that important to us. We wanted to design something that user possibly already comes to, and it already has some content, it already has some value, or at least that very quickly after they start using it, it gets to that point, right? So we wanted to focus on the daily check-in job to be done, which is when I'm starting work for the day, I want to quickly check what happened in my team while I was gone so that I can help my team be productive. So this was all the stuff that we did before we decided to do a design sprint. And then I suggested, let's do like a minified version of the design sprint. So we accelerate things, we quickly come up with a solution and validate it. Everyone was up for it. Everyone at this point, it was just me, Mike, the product manager, and Kevin, the other designer that worked on this. And it's the goals of this design sprint were first, the main one, the primary one, which was design this concept, right, solution, whatever, and possibly validate it. And then I had two secondary goals. The first one was I wanted to prove that these sprints can be completed in a matter of days. And the other one was I wanted to prove that they don't need to be scheduled and planned well ahead, that it's something that can be done ad hoc in a way, right? And I'll tell you in the end which of these goals we achieved successfully. So let's go to the design sprint itself. This was the plan that I pretty much wrote out for it, all the steps, each participant, what they had to do. Some of the sessions were synchronous, some of them were asynchronous. We actually had 3 synchronous sessions, and I think a couple of homeworks for each of the participants. We started on a Monday, and then we completed the design sprint on Wednesday next week, where we had the feedback calls. So we showed what we came up with to some people internally, and that's what concluded it basically. And so we started out with a template, right? wait, let's go to the actual template. So this is the template that we prescribe in a way, right? Here at GitLab for design sprints. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff here, right? Workshop series 1, workshop series 2. You need to come up with a map of the user journey, challenges, all these things, right? The key thing here was we already had some of these things done and kind of validated, because we already know that about all this research and feedback that we get from users, that we should create like a dashboard or something for them, which would eliminate the need for checking email notifications or to-dos, relying on to-dos and stuff like that. So what I did was I just started removing the sections in this design sprint template that I thought weren't relevant to us, right? I wanted to minify literally this design sprint, and I minified it into this basically. And just, quickly glancing at it, it looks way smaller, less daunting. So I was happy with that. And then I prepared that plan, which I already showed you, and we were ready to start sprinting basically, right? And as we said, we already had identified problems we wanted to solve. As some pre-design sprint homework for our participants, I asked them, hey, can you go into the mural and start putting some stickies into the first section, the problems to solve, the ones that you think are important, the ones we identified through the work we've already done. And then on the day of the design sprint, before the synchronous session, I went in and started doing some affinity mapping. So I grouped them into a couple of groups. And we started the design sprint by simply discussing these, right? Going through them, acknowledging them, discussing them, and basically getting everyone else caught up because we had some new participants that weren't involved with the work from before. So then we had to translate these problems into challenges, right? And we do this by framing how might we questions. And we came up with quite a lot of them. And again, we did some affinity mapping here again. We did this on the synchronous session, and everyone was just moving Post-it notes around. It was quite cool. And in the end, we voted, right? We voted on the things that we thought were the most important things to solve in this design sprint. And we ended up with 4 top voted how might we's, right? And these 4 were: how might we allow users to designate and track high priority issues and merge requests? How might we show the dev lead users what's urgent immediately without email scanning? How might we make to-dos as useful as email notifications? And how might we create the concept of a team? In the end, we focused more on these 2. These 2 were more outside of the immediate area of focus. Because to-dos is something that is very much related to the work that we are working on, but we weren't sure if we wanted to actually tackle that big problem. We all know that the to-dos are quite problematic here at GitLab. And then creating the concept of a team, we weren't really sure about that because we already have the groups and projects, and that structure isn't very clear to our users already. And adding another layer on top of that complexity, we just weren't sure. So we kind of naturally gravitated towards these 2. And then this actually completed the first synchronous session. Then we had some homework, right? And this was the lightning demos. We asked each participant to find a couple of examples of dashboards that they really liked and put down some notes about these. So each participant did that. This was completely asynchronous, and then other participants would go and take a look at what was posted in there. So when each participant completed their homework, they would post in the Slack channel and say, hey, you can go and take a look at my stuff. And then the other part of the homework was actually concept sketching, right? So the instructions are here. So we didn't check how each of the participants actually approached this concept sketching. We just asked them to, when you come up with something, put it here in the concept gallery, your sketch, your mock-up, wireframe, whatever. And we'll discuss this in the next synchronous session, right? So I think all of the participants actually sketched a couple of things. A few of them sketched multiple concepts. And that was really cool. So we started the next synchronous session by just reviewing these. So these were meant to be done anonymously, but we all agreed, that we were ready to share and expose which of the concepts were ours and just present them a bit more so that we don't evaluate them without the context or without the ideas behind it. So we did that. Each of the participants presented their mock-ups, their sketches. And after that, we decided to vote on them, but we decided to vote on the overall concept and on a particular area that you possibly liked from a different concept, right? Each of us had 2 votes. And of course, we also had the decider role, which Mike, who was the product manager, had. You can see the 2 smiley votes. Those were his votes. These were the deciding votes in a way. So he voted on an overall concept of having a flexible dashboard where you can possibly add or remove widgets and restructure the layout, stuff like that. And then a triaging sort of feature where the user can go through the activity or through the mentions, and then they can say, this is important, this is not important, remove it, something like that, right? So we had enough for a designer to take over and just create either a mock-up or a really early stage prototype. So Kevin did some extra work on top of that and put some content into this really basic map of what the solution should be. And he created, so these are the feedback notes, he created this basically. So this is the concept that we're now working on. For the user's dashboard, you can see the activity digest widget where they have like a mentions tab and the activity tab. They can switch between the 2. They can possibly filter them, right? We offer them some tips. We offer them recently viewed items because, just from speaking to users and a lot of feedback comes back to us, they always navigate to certain things and it's sometimes hard to find them in GitLab. So something like that would probably be really useful. And then we're also in contact with Marcel and his team, and he just created recently this cool Mac app that lives in your toolbar, I think it's called on Macs. And recently viewed items there are, I think he said, the most popular. They get a lot of traffic. But then what we started exploring was this possibility of triaging stuff, right? So you would be able to say, or a user would be able to say, pin this to my priorities. I need to do something about this, right? So they would click on it and it would land here. You scroll and it remains there, right? This was the riskiest thing that we were exploring in a way, right? And we then showed this in the last synchronous session to a few of the GitLab team members free. And the feedback was really positive. And something that was really good, really cool for us was this level of excitement that was obvious from all the participants. Because they were like, oh, I could actually use this. This would replace the need for me going to email and scanning through all the content that is, most of it is not relevant to me. And I could just, possibly have multiple activity digest widgets, filter them differently because I manage multiple teams, and then I could add or remove stuff from my priorities, right? I could have everything in one screen in a way. So the feedback was really positive. We decided, okay, let's get some feedback from external GitLab users as well. And that was really positive as well. Everyone gets it once they see the pin icon, that they actually pin stuff there. Something that wasn't that obvious was that level of excitement. It was there, but not as much as with the internal people that we tested this with, right? So one of the assumption is why there isn't that level of excitement is we really need to find the right users to test with, because this is a feature, if we want to call it like that, that is most useful when you're working in a team and possibly have multiple projects, and you need to be a manager as well. So we tried to do follow-up sessions of these user testing that come unmoderated tests, and we gradually got to better users, if we want to call them like that, for this particular problem that we're solving here. And we started to see a bit more of that excitement. So this is basically where we're at with this user's dashboard concept. And now the next steps is basically deciding what the MVC is. We kind of already did that. We are thinking about just defaulting this dashboard, this homepage, to the to-dos, and see if we can raise the engagement with that page compared to the current default dashboard page, which is just a list of projects, right? Which isn't very useful. And then we have a couple of ideas for follow-up experiments. But how do we test this riskiest assumption of pinning stuff to your priorities? Maybe we could run another painted door experiments. It's what they're called, where we would basically just add this icon to the UI. We would show the tooltip as well. But once the user clicks, we tell them, hey, this is actually not ready. We're just measuring, the interest in this by measuring engagement. And if it has enough interest in enough engagement, we will actually decide to work on this, right? That could be a way, but we're not sure yet. So that's it for where we're at with the dashboard. If we go back to the 3 goals that I mentioned at the beginning, the first one, the primary one, was come up with a solution and a vision for the dashboard and possibly validate it. And we were really happy with the solution that we came up with. We validated it as well. We were really happy with the result. The secondary ones proved that the design sprints can be done in a couple of days. I was happy with this one because even though we started on a Monday and completed the sprint on a Wednesday the week after, it actually was just 3 sync sessions, which lasted for 2 hours, and a couple of homeworks for the participants, right? This could actually be done if most of the work was synchronous. This could be done in 2 days, 3 max. And then the last one proved that this design sprints don't need to be scheduled and planned well ahead. So we weren't able to prove this one because we expanded the team from the 3 initial participants to 5. And then it was much harder to find time slots for the sync sessions, right? So we had to move the design sprint from the beginning of September to the end of September. But maybe in the next sprint that we do, maybe I'll be able to prove that. So yeah, I really wanted to prove these things because I don't know, there's this general belief that design sprints are things that you only do occasionally, and possibly because they're these complex things that usually take 2 weeks. So I wanted to kind of break through that mentality and just prove, hey, maybe you have some work already done. You don't need to do a full sprint. You can just minify it and just say, let's do it with a small team and let's try to do it in 3 days and really accelerate this to get some momentum going, right? So yeah, that's it. That's where we are. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about what we came up with for the user's dashboard, as well as what do you think about design sprints? Do they really need to be these huge complex things that take 1 to 2 weeks? Do you really need to schedule them well ahead and things like that?
Okay. Anybody have any questions? I see that Justin's typing in the doc.
I don't have any question. I'm just happy to see that you were able to take the existing templates and kind of slice it up for your needs, and that it worked out well. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and that was not the main thing, right? The main thing was we need to find a solution for this and validate it. But this was, the next important thing for me personally, at least.
I also appreciate that you're proving it doesn't have to take a very long time to do one.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we're not as ready to do synchronous sessions, right? At GitLab, we prefer to do stuff asynchronously if possible. But in the case of design sprints, if you're able to do most of it synchronously, you can actually speed it up quite a bit and do it in 2-3 days, especially if you need to minify it, or you can minify it in a way like this. It really doesn't need to be this big thing.
Since no one else is saying anything, I'll jump in to give similar feedback, but I was shocked when I saw the difference between the old template and your new template, because even the new template is still really robust.
Yeah.
So I would love to know, as you use this minified template more, whether or not we could just maybe replace the old template with the new template. I will admit,
Yeah.
I looked at the old template and went, oh, that's overwhelming. Golly.
I would say yes, it is. It's this one. Yeah, it is overwhelming, right? I have no idea what this is, for example. User test flow. I didn't even look at it. I just removed it because it looked way too complex to me, to be honest. I think we can leave it as it is. I just wanted, everyone to know that it's okay to remove stuff from templates, even if we prescribe some of these templates for certain things, right? You don't need to do the whole thing, especially if you're confident about the work you already did and you feel like, okay, we really don't need all this stuff. Just remove it and keep moving forward, I would say.
Yeah, the template is meant to comprise every possible phase if you're starting basically from scratch with the design sprint. And a lot of times we're not. So that might be, I'm hesitant to remove certain parts because maybe a team might be starting very preliminarily. So I like the idea that you're able to recognize when you can remove something. That's the hard part though. How do you recognize when you're able to remove something?
Yeah.
But iterate, by all means.
I wonder, because the design sprint seems so valuable, maybe even putting what you just said, Justin, in the larger template, which is take out what you don't want to use. Because even Matei, who did it, it sounds like he kind of had to think about it ahead. And like, is this all right? Well, yeah, it's all right. Let's just tell everybody it's all right. Use what makes sense here.
Yeah, we could either put it in the template itself or somewhere in the remote design sprint page we have in the handbook. I think there's another page. I think I found it when I was looking up stuff, but even this one is quite long. And there's another, I think, template for an issue, which is quite long as well. And here it says we recommend keeping your remote design sprints to 2 weeks or less. Maybe we can write something about, hey, maybe it can be just a couple of days, right? If you
That's
feel
meant to say that you shouldn't be doing it 10 days. You should be doing it sync or async across a minimum of 2 weeks. That's what it's trying to say.
Okay.
That's totally open to updates. Absolutely.
Cool.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
if you take the, oh, sorry, Jackie, you go ahead.
That's okay. I'll just jump in. I have one quick note and then we can go to yours. I just made a quick note in the agenda that Tim Noah is doing another one of these sprints. He's just starting it now. And he's making like some small changes to it based on what he needs for the particular problem he's working on. So we'll get more feedback pretty soon.
Just to add, just before, I don't know who else is going to talk. I don't think we can prove Matei's assumption of the couple of days, just because of the nature of the people that we're going to be including. But I think we're going to adapt it to our needs because we're going to be doing sales, support reps, and so forth. So it will be slightly different. But I'm looking forward to using this template. Thank you, Matei.
I wasn't the one who created it. I just noticed that it was a link from this page, I think. And I said, this is perfect. This is perfect as a starting point. And then, when I reviewed it, it looked a bit big. And I said, we already did this. We don't need that. And I started removing stuff, right? I don't know who prepared it. Who created it?
I created the template.
You created the template. Okay.
Thank you,
You can
Justin.
tell on how I was talking about it. This write-up was multiple people, but it's based on the template. So if anyone has questions about anything on how it's supposed to work or anything like that, let me know.
Yeah.
Claire, do you want to voice your comment?
Yeah, semantics again, Christy. But the term design sprint, I think, really helps us sort of guide exactly what Matei's talking about, which is generating and eliminating ideas as quick as possible, whatever that suits your needs. I mean, if you have a couple of weeks and a lot of people to do it in, and the project needs it, why not? But if the idea is just to quickly move on to the next phase, then I think adapting, which is exactly what happened here, is exactly what the doctor called for.
Yep, that's well said. Let me stop recording. We need to move on.